some we are live. Hello, everyone. Very happy to have another episode of our partner book club series that we have started together with the Story of Books, my wonderful ladies that I've been knowing them for ages. We are partners, colleagues, worked in marketing for almost a decade together, and now we're here to introduce you to the second episodes of what we're going to be discussing today. And this is an excellent topic. I'll introduce you in a second. It's called How to Read a Book Today, Preparing Our Minds for Reading, but also tapping into how we're actually reading today. And so introducing you to my lovely colleagues so that you can see who they are. We've got here, obviously, Selena Christmas, the author, the publisher, and the co-founder of Studio Glue, Aloha Glue. Hello. Hello, Selena. Hello. And we've got her beautiful sister, Zarina Holmes, the designer, photographer, writer, and award-winning creative director. Welcome, Zarina.
Hello.
And to no bypass on my end, I've got something to introduce you to myself briefly for those ones who don't know very much. Nadia Burke, the founder of the Future of Skills podcast, the co-founder of Step Digital, which is the highly commended best podcast in science and technology. Now, over to us, to the topic of today. How are we feeling today?
Oh, great. A bit hot, but great. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of reading because it's August and holiday season. Yes. So yeah, that's been wonderful. Yep.
That's excellent. And the topic that we've got today is something that we thought would be very useful for our audience because it's the kind of topic that is also very, very relevant for today's dynamics in the market. We'll tap into those dynamics because a lot of them are triggering the interest of the tech industry, but also the publishing industry, which is something that we'll need to diversify a little bit more and tap into. Before we do that, we've got a little bit more of a highlight to put together and discuss about. And I'll share with you exactly what are we going to be talking about. So preparing the minds for reading in the noisy social media age, yeah, because it's important to tap into the noise and what is it doing to our habits. Now, with that in mind, as I was saying, we're also going to be exploring how the younger generations are reading the books today, how often, how passionately, and if at all, right? And then the other part of what we're going to obviously look into is the fact that we want to make sure that we don't forget to subscribe to the TFS Book Club and the Story of Books Book Club, which is going to be obviously mentioned below, as you know, below in the live. So thank you again for those ones who have already done that, and for those ones who are looking to do so, do not forget. So in terms of the key topic, I know that previously we have talked about the challenges of reading for adults and teenagers due to digital noises. This has been the topic of the prior episode. And today, I know that you ladies have been having success with appearing on the Substack Copyright News lately. Can you talk us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the Copyright News is a weekly or even monthly newsletters run by Dr. Matt Boyds, another anthropologist, researcher at Erasmus Institute at the moment, and he keeps tabs of all the copyright-related news within publishing. So our podcast got mentioned, and hopefully also followed by his audience, which are librarians all over the world.
Wow, exciting. Well, that gives us more voices to outreach to and a wider audience as well to engage with. So thank you for doing that. In terms of creating the space for reading physically and mentally, what do we have to put on board? What do we feel about this?
Yeah, so basically, we're going to talk about how we actually get into the preparation of reading. And while we talk about reading, we talk about, I've been speaking to Zarina about this. We've been talking about decluttering, and not just our space in order for us to read, but also our mind as well, psychologically. So there's like a physical clutter that we have to get rid of, and then there's this mental clutter, the checklist, so to speak. So yeah, it's like a mindful, isn't it? Yeah, and we are talking about physical space and also mental space, which we will elaborate more. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I'm preparing our questions so it's being seen by users who are absolutely joining in as we speak. But it's really important, as we have discussed earlier, the fact that for us, making sure that we highlight and discuss a bit more about the audiences that can connect through to their books in whatever environment that might be, during the commute or maybe in a bit more relaxed environment. And I suppose what we thought we would discuss is how do we as humans behave when there is noise around us versus when there isn't any form of noise and we're in a very comfortable, working environment, be it at home or maybe in a very quiet coffee shop, if there are any quiet coffee shops out there. But it's just a case of what do we feel? When is it better for us to concentrate, focus, and literally engage with the book?
Yeah, so I think these spaces, what we call third spaces, they are going to be very important at present and also in the future, because now that our attention span and the way we consume the media and the way we find these solitary spaces is very different from maybe 10 years ago. So maybe town planners need to consider and factor this a lot more carefully within our environment. And our experience traveling to like huge cities in the world. For example, our trip to Tokyo earlier this year, we observed, coffee shops at bookstores that also function as like a reading space. And it's amazing. For example, Sutaya bookstores in the middle of Shibuya, very, very busy environment. But when you enter this space, it's kind of like, holistic and quiet, and people just go there to buy coffee and, read some manga or whatever books they have. And another example that we see is the Elite Bookstores chain from Taiwan. They also have this kind of like, a beautiful reading experience in store, where the bookstore is not just a place where you buy books, but also a place where you can sit down and then browse through books while, having coffee or something.
It's a bookstore that looks like a very expensive boutique.
And library.
Yes, library as well. So
Yeah.
that's the so like a trend now, a style now in Asia at least.
Yeah.
And on the topic of so like a reading, right? I mean, we have to remember. I mean, last episode we talked about distraction, and this episode preparation to read. Reading is a form of labor, and as such, it competes with other types of labor like work, and of course sports. If you do sports, spending time with your family, also so like watching Netflix. So it's a labor, it's a chore. I can say that it's a chore. Now, for example, for us, right, at least for me, I read since I was in the UK anyway. I tend to read during lunchtime when it's the quietest, right? In between eating, and then also like especially when I was in London, right, commuting as well. Now, all I can say is that reading as such is very opportunistic, but because it's opportunistic, it can be opportunistic by design as well. And this is where I try to go back to like the Japanese example, right? I mean, years ago, Tyler Brule of Monaco wrote about, he traveled through Japan. He was like, why can't we in the UK have, it's like all these kind of, so like a coffee shops, like in Shinjuku, for example, right? And he was like really impressed by the fact that, the correlation between, train stations and walking distance and opportunity to sit in Tokyo, right? And people like to read, which is kind of nice. And also they even did this research, one of the papers there about how different activities that you do on the train also so like impact how you actually read books. Like if you're on a standing coach, how do you read books? And if you're sitting now, how do you read books? And here's an example of books we bought from what do you call it, Shinjuku, isn't it?
Yes.
Books Kinokuniya.
Books Kinokuniya. And the size is pretty small, so you can put it in your pocket. Yeah, so compare that with this book.
Very comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, if you compare that. So it's really tiny. You can put it in the pocket of your jacket in wintertime and talk about Netflix. Okay, we bought this at Books Kinokuniya as well, pendants. Again, it's like a promoter at Netflix, but it's a book in itself, comic book, and you can slip it into your bag as well.
But having said that, despite this positive news out of Japan, I'm sorry to say that it didn't stop the bookshops from falling. So as of March 2026, I think Japan has got the numbers fallen below 10,000, which is quite sad. And when they look at the data of the period between 1994 and 2004, that's a 50% drop. So even with this good news, it's like
massive, isn't it?
After pandemic, it's like, so what happened there, we think is to do with, of course, market demand, pandemic, everything got shot to pieces. And of course, reading pattern as well. I mean, that's another, a research as well by Soichi et al. 2010 about, again, like I said, competing, labor. Students in Japan, they find it, university students find it quite hard to actually fit in reading, and the university student is supposed to read. And they say that their reading time competes with, guess what? Internet and television. So what's new? So there you are. So basically this delayed sleep-wake pattern as well didn't help the fact that, they had to fit in writing as well on top of that. So there we are. So how do we prepare to read when you have to do other stuff as well, like a peer pressure, whatnot?
Yeah, exactly. I tried to keep up with what you were saying with trying to also put up the banners on the screen, just because there's quite a lot that we're tapping into, and I'm grateful that you've mentioned the various forms of commute, the fact that you can have this activity as an enriching activity also before going to sleep, and there is the behavioral attachment to it. There's something that it does to our habits, and then the way that our brain functions as well. So it's good to keep in mind that there are elements of influence out there. But when it comes to what you mentioned regarding the sleep-wake patterns and how it currently is shifting our behaviors towards how we perceive what benefit it does to us, a reading habit, versus what benefit it does to us having a screen before we go to sleep, be it from the phone, be it from a tablet, right? Because it kind of seems that the digital competes with the print here if we're holding a book in front of us. So there's another question that I think we thought that we would look into, and this is primarily regarding the difference between the print and the digital, and what do we think about the behaviors associated to reading a book in the actual physical shape of it and form versus having it on Kindle or maybe on a tablet device where Kindle is present, or maybe some other apps out there. And how do we feel about the consumption patterns there?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, Nadia, because I think we should actually read what is suitable for us. For some people, reading on a tablet is perfect because you don't have to carry a lot of things around. But for me, as someone who's very visual and also neurodiverse, my attention span is very, very short. So I tend to gravitate towards paper more because when I touch something like, for example, something like this zine, something small, and something bite-sized and easy to consume. This is a poetry book about the moon.
That's amazing. Is it a poetry book? Oh my God. So it was like a note-taking something or...
Yeah, it's like a picture of a moon.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, with a sentence, and for me, it's enough to make me stop and then focus on what I'm reading. So for people like me, this is ideal. And another example is, this is a zine, but it's gatefold. This is a haiku from an author, Shusha, from Singapore. So this is actually a haiku, and you can read it from left, right, up and down, bottom up, any way you want. And for me, this is a good starter for me to get to read, or even to just pay attention to words. So I think we shouldn't discount this. And of course, I would recommend people like me to read poetry books because number one, they're shorter. They're shorter. And number two is it's just so much easier to digest. So you don't feel overwhelmed by the size of the book. So if you want to start reading seriously, maybe start with something simple like this. And this is Love and Lost by Edwin Betamani. It's one of our favorite poets here.
Yeah. And also, I mean, also as well, right? We actually just came back from the Zine festival, recently, and we thought that we know so many people that said that they have a problem reading, and they actually followed our podcast last time, right? I had an intern at university. Bear in mind, a lot of the interns that came to my university, majority would be studying mechanical engineering, and this guy said that his peak reading was when he was 16. He's already a master student.
He no longer reads as much as he used to.
Yeah, so basically that was quite something. So I thought that we're at a Zine festival, we thought that there's so many formats that I thought would suit people who just either don't have time to read or can't focus. And this is one particular example. It's actually an anthology of poetry. So if you compare that one with this book, this one, right?
Look at the size. Smaller, more comfortable even to sit in.
Yeah, and also it's like a Rubik's Cube. There's an element of play whereby you can open it like this, and suddenly it just become like that, and then it will become like this.
Very creative, isn't it?
It's great intrigue, and people like what's going on, but
It makes you stop.
It makes you stop, and for a while you just thought that I have to focus on what's printed here because there's an element of play, like Rubik.
Wow, that's fantastic. Who would have thought that books could look this way?
Yeah, but it has to be smaller, and I thought smaller is good. Like this one is the most annoying poetry zine. And I thought, why not? Hardly anything there. It does make me focus on the 2 words there, but we thought that if kids have problems with reading, right? The best thing is if they can't actually read a book, get them to read a zine.
Zine. So that's what you qualify a book of such form and shape is called in Asia, is it?
Zine. Yeah, it's a zine. Yeah.
We'll need to put some links in the content below just to give a little bit more examples of how these books look like, because you've just shared here some fascinating examples of, starting with the note taker example and then maneuvering through some of those ones that actually expand like a, like a musical instrument almost. It's fantastic the way that creativity can shape up these executions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking about actually, the focus that you were saying and the execution of these books, they are very, very creative. I haven't seen anything like this in the UK, to be fair, or maybe if they're not necessarily top of sight when you go into a library. Library, it's very traditional form of a book that you can see when you enter, isn't it? But that's it caught my attention, this sheer fact of catching attention before you would go into the habit of reading a book, or how do you stick to that habit of reading a book in a certain hour of the day, or maybe before going to sleep. So there has been a theory, attention restoration theory, that's associated particularly with Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, suggesting that natural environments can allow directing attention to recover. So that's to do with how we can recover our attention if we are in a natural space. So what it talks about here is about various types of attention, such as directed attention, which is the hard focus on a task. It blocks out distractions and gets tired fast. Also involuntary attention, which is a soft focus, and it happens naturally when looking at nice things and lets the brain rest and reset, which is that natural environment, isn't it? And so what they also say is that there are 4 parts of nature that heal, such as being away, meaning, a break from normal stress or daily work, and then the soft fascination, the gentle sides like moving leaves, water, clouds that hide without the effort, and then the extent. It's a feeling of being in a big, safe and whole world when it's everything around you may sound so big, but for that you need to be in a field, you need to be in your connection with the nature. And then the compatibility part of healing is when the place fits what you want it to do or feel for you. For example, tips to add the nature to busy work days, literally just a walk in the park if you're working in the city, or like how art can compares to other stress theories. Just have with you something to draw before you actually read a book, which is another form of resetting and setting yourself forward to the reading habit. So all of these are studies that are included in this very attention restoration theory, which allows to sort of focus and gather the focus in a bit more seamless, natural way. But looking to get a little bit more of thoughts from you ladies. Is it something that you've observed in the Asian culture happening, or maybe there are already tendencies around that?
Yeah, I think, you know what, this is a very, very important point. Like you just threw a very important question there. Do we read the book first, or do we restore our attention first? I think it's important to restore our attention first, because without it, it means nothing. You can't hold anything. And in the previous episode, we talked about how the young people find it difficult to retain information. It's because they cannot pay attention. They don't have that ability, the muscle to stick to one subject. So I think this is something that we need to look at very carefully, how to actually maintain the health of our attention. Otherwise, we can't really hold anything for a book.
Yeah.
What do you think as an author?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, what do I think as an author? Oh my God, that is really slow food. I'm telling that people
slow food. I like that, the way you mentioned it.
I'm stuck within the world of like a prompting for PR, prompt, and then going back to actually writing my next book, right? As a spell check, nothing. And it's like, I'm really talking about 10 lines a day, sometimes less. But I think it's worth it, So, yeah, my point is, if I were to write a book and I don't want it to be watermarked by Claude, it's better for me to treat it like slow food. So there you are.
Exactly right with you. It's a genuine type of food, isn't it? As opposed to anything to do with additives and preservatives on top of it.
Yeah. Very important point.
Yeah. And I know that we've discussed regarding the format of reading the books, be it the print or digital. I know that there has been recently this news that got us talking before the episode. And this news is around something that is sounding fairly concerning before it would sound beneficial. And what is that in particular? I'm going to share the screen so that the others can see as well. So add to the stage this particular news about Anthropic destroying books, but also Amazon being caught to destroy rare books to train AI. So the focus here is training the AI as the ultimate goal, but other than that, it's also preserving the rights to hold the content for that book, because prior to that, the AI companies were caught in lawsuits that were connected to them utilizing the books without necessarily the copyright permission of the owners, the authors of those books, right? Hence why they were engaged in various lawsuits against them. So they found a loophole and a shortcut to literally buy the books in bulk in order to get the rights over them, because some of them are so rare that they date back from the 16th century. And then ultimately what they do to them is they destroy them. And that's something that poses a lot of questions over there in terms of the ethics of the procedure, in terms of how ultimately useful is that for the later generations, and the control over the content, of course, because the more that they get the control, the ultimate control, the more it becomes the renting the service type of thing, as opposed to having a free access to the content that we would have had so far. What do you guys think?
Well, my perspective as a designer, I think it's a bit concerning, because although we do need to work with technology and we do need to use AI, it's been very helpful in my career, because all the softwares we have now uses AI a lot, it's part of the tools. But at the same time, I'm concerned if this information, the contents from the rare books are kept in the gated area behind paywall, and it's not accessible. If it's open for all, it's a different debate altogether. But if it's gated and you have to subscribe expensive amount, the ones that can't afford it, or students, they will never get this information, number one. And number two is my concern about destroying the rare books is the books is an object, and to make a book it involves so many craftswomen, printers, designers, typographers, paper makers, and this connects us to the crafters from.
But even the writers, you got authors, editors, proofreaders.
Exactly. So layers and layers of experience that you cannot quantify. You cannot put a number, to it. And the old books actually preserve the experience of people from 500 years ago, 300 years ago, and because of this old artifact, we now know how people lived, how people get knowledge
what
from
material they used.
Yeah. And in fact, me and Selena were talking about this point when we got your notes, and we said that, well, if everything's been scanned and put into cloud, there won't be any museums.
Absolutely. What type of books will they store in them if they will be all bought up and destroyed later on, isn't it? It kind of
Like we won't hang out at the V&A anymore, Nadia.
Yeah. To the equivalent,
Absolutely.
it's like you go to a British museum, you look at the Elgin marbles, and you know that the Elgin marbles, of course, doesn't belong to Elgin, it belongs to Greece, right? But it's different when you see the actual marbles in an actual temple in Greece, for example, or in Rome. You know that, this is how, that's the context of this thing. It's not just a piece of statue you put there. So when you actually destroy a book, that's an analogy. When you destroy a book and you just take the words, right? This is the context of it. Who print, whatever, and there's a story behind it. You take the word, you put it up there in the cloud, right? Yeah, you can have something you can read, right? But
it's divorced from the experience.
Yeah,
the human experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what sounds a tiny bit alarming here as well is that the more alarming was the upshot of the lawsuit, because that's the one way of how the wider audience became aware of the AI industry practicing destroying books, basically, because there was already a lawsuit against Anthropic that was set up a few years back, which revealed that the Claude chatbot maker was using industrial equipment to cut the pages out of millions of books and then scan them before they were disposed of. So the more alarming here was the upshot of the lawsuit when a judge ruled that because Anthropic was turning the physical texts into digital ones and destroying the original copies, it was transformative and therefore didn't violate the copyright law. Would be very keen to get from your perspective, the actual authors that you are, designers, you're a team of both, right? So how do you guys feel about that type of approach?
How do I feel about this? Well, as an author, I feel that they're behaving like a mobile phone. With the mobile phone, you download the music, right? It's locked into the ecosystem. It's fair enough. I like mobile phones. I like certain brands, but it's just that you can't actually easily leave the content from the ecosystem. Like if you want to listen to this particular thing, you have to download all the ecosystem apps. So I feel that ebooks is heading that way.
Yeah. And for me, this is probably just the beginning of that conversation. We can't comment so much on the law and legal matters, but I think those who are concerned, like Dr. Matt Boyd, those who research into copyright and IPs, they would have they have a task ahead of them to actually define all these new developments. Yeah, we're gonna be busy.
By the sound of it. And it's also very interesting for me, this notion of buying a book and suddenly becoming the holder of its copyright rights if you're making it digital, like how the two are connecting together, being immediately the owner of the copyright, right? Simply buying
interesting to see the difference between maybe the US law and the EU, because we follow the EU law. So I think the EU will be more, they have their own sets of rules with regards to IP.
I think it'll be interesting to see how they counter this in terms of fair use and open copyright. Because there's going to be a comeback, right? With every reformation, there's a counter reformation. So,
one to follow.
Yeah. So in terms of the value you've just mentioned, so there is a company, an investigative journalistic company called 404, and they said that there are different types of value as per the bookseller who has been interviewed by the 404. He says there is monetary value, obviously, because they're being paid to sell those books, but there's also a lot of other types of value, such as the historical value, intellectual value, sentimental value to those books, right? All sorts of things, and all of these that the AI companies don't really care about, and then they just want to the content as a bunch of words strung together. That's literally the quote taken from that interview with the bookseller and the 404 company. And to reply on your question regarding the value of what those books bring along the way, so it's also, you know, the present and the future heritage of what they will stop bringing in if they are being disposed of. So that's that element. And then I know that looking into the connecting topic to it that we wanted to discuss about was the fact that our topic for today is selecting the books that we feel talk about courage, which is very contextually friendly with what we've earlier discussed about the books that are sadly being disposed of. So I know that each of us have prepared their sort of books to go for when it comes to courage. And I know that there's absolutely no way that we can capture the most of them that we think that they could represent courage about, but would be very keen to get from your perspective if there are any courage representative books in your library.
All right. Okay. So this is my favorite part of the book podcast because I get to read books. It's got to be our homework. And maybe we should give this homework to, you know, anyone that, you know, follows this podcast, right? Okay. Find something courageous about the character that you see in the book. So we've been to Kuala Lumpur Zine Festival the past week, and I chose this book. It's called "There Is Nothing Objective About This Documentary," and it's by
intriguing already.
Yeah, it's a zine. It's a zine. Of course, it's a zine. It's a zine by a documentary filmmaker called Rama Fauzi. And this is the story of a migrant from Myanmar that came to the country 20 years ago. And he actually built the Petronas Twin Towers, you know.
One of the workers.
Yeah, one of the workers. And he's, you know, the towers are the pride and joy of Malaysia, but it was built by a migrant worker, a refugee. So
it was workers.
Yeah. So it's very, you know, it's very intriguing, and you know, I got to talk to her. So this is a very courageous project indeed. Yeah.
And mine is also the zine as well, this mini book, and it's called Tombo. Tombo means one type of like a poems, you know, Malay poems, whatever. What I like about it is, one, it's in a dialect. It's not even the official Malay language. So not everyone can understand it. You know, when I asked this person, this poet, why? He said that, well, because I want to preserve my dialect.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Yeah, quite emotive, isn't it?
And second of all, the content. I can't say much because I live, you know, here. You know, censorship is something else, right? But it is not something you'll find in the main newspaper here, very bold. Not something that you'll find in mainstream TV channel or radio channel. It's very blunt. It talks about things that I cannot mention here because I want the podcast to go away. Right? And I thought very impactful, considering it's just short form and it's not more than 20 pages. But when you read it, you go like, oh, you know, and nothing. There's nothing at all to it, just words and paper. And I thought,
what about that book from China?
Oh, this one.
So this is quite interesting. This is zine as well. The Man Who Wrote the Ghost. So it's printed by this you know, filmmaker
from China,
Guangzhou, China, and it's a ghost story or something like that because he's a horror filmmaker. And I said to the guy selling this, is that isn't that kind of like not
the damn thing,
not encouraged in a, you know, in a communist state, you know? And he's like, yeah.
Transparent.
It's a story that needs to be told, you know. And I thought, wow, you're very courageous.
Very courageous. But then you know what is bravado, but he's confident that because it's just a zine, he's not going to be in trouble because there's other fish to fry, basically. And I thought it was quite good, you know, because you know, like these people, they actually, I find that at Zine Festival, they're much bolder, right?
Yeah.
Then book festival, they're more like rock and roll for some reason, you know.
And how about you, Nadia? What did you find?
Well, thank you so much for asking, because I'm a big fan of Neil Gaiman here. And because Neil Gaiman is a bit of a mysticist, isn't it? So he's a bit more of a mystical author, apart from him being a bit more spiritual, elevated and all that. But also, I'm a big fan of Coraline. And I'm finding that
I love Coraline.
she's courageous. I mean, she ventures into finding her parents despite knowing what danger is awaiting her at the other side of the door, in the other world that she's not really at all comfortable with. And what I've done with this book is, not only do I have it in 3 language versions, so this one is Romanian because I've just returned from my holiday back home, right? And this one is in English, is the version of the book in English, and I've also got a version of the book in German, Coraline. How big it is, talking about the bigger books. So the execution of this is quite nice as well, because it's got some zoomed in characters. So for those ones who might need, lenses or something to read, it's very comfortable book. So the reason why I'm having it in various languages is because I can start to better get acquainted to the version of various phrases and dialogue in particular in various other languages, right? And it's easier to get a grasp of these phrases in the other languages. And I thought she's courageous. She's wonderful per se. So yeah, that's my choice.
Oh, lovely. I love Neil Gaiman, like a whatever aside, right? I really love Sandman.
Yeah,
Love.
I think that's also a very fun way to enjoy books. Just read one story in different languages.
Yeah.
Such a fun way to enjoy books.
That's my recipe with Coraline, and I can't say that I have finished it yet, but I'm literally midway through, which means that it's a lot of excitement that pumps into it, and I'm quite a big fan of how he writes as well. And because this is a courageous character in the mix, I thought, okay, let's put it out there, give it a voice. And because there is another has been vehiculated a few days ago about this story about books being in the landfill, sadly, because of disposal. However, on the flip side, there are very positive strides made by some bigger names out there in the industry, and I'm talking here about a young voice, Erling Haaland, who is the leading World Cup footballer, who's purchased a very, I do apologize, there's a typo here, but the intent is there, who's purchased a very rare 16th century book for $134,000. He didn't keep it, however. He donated it to the local library, which makes it really, really relevant. And the fact that he's the one who sees reading as there was a motivation behind why would he do that in the first place? Why would he invest into a book like that and then, donate it? And he mentioned that for him, football was the medium that made his dreams come true. However, he believes that books are opening wider doors for people to make their dreams come true, So he regrets not being an avid reader in his earlier days, but now he's getting back to this habit now that he's fulfilled, he's established as a person and in the world. A book worth $134,000, which is amazing for, his active courage, I would have thought as well.
He's so impressive. He's so impressive. Maybe he reminds me a bit of Eric Cantona. Remember him?
Yeah, he's a poet.
He's a footballer that loved to recite poetry, something like that.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah, Eric Cantona.
Yeah,
big fan of Eric Cantona. So yeah, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, exactly right. And I know that we have also prepared our topic for the next discussion, and that is in particular to recap on the main points of today. We've how managing online activity at the time. So the focus that we have for next time is reading and reflection. So reflecting over what we've read. So not just reading for the sake of reading, isn't it? But actually making some meaning out of it along the way. What would you ladies feel about that, about the next topic to discuss?
I think this is going to be interesting, and those who really want to kind of like get a lot from what they read, they should follow it, because we're going to look at how we read a book and then how we digest it afterwards. Because you can't just read, consume, and then not pause and reflect and then contextualize it, with your own words. You must learn to step back, stop, and reflect. So it's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, that's
more
exciting.
books to read. Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to the next topic so that we can get prepared as well with new coming updates in the industry, with a little bit more of a anticipation of our own type of reading, because Zarina has just nicely mentioned that this sort of pacing of the book club connections is giving us another reason to connect with our own library and with our own books, right? And explore them more for like, what can we take out of them? And I suppose that's what we're going to discuss next, isn't it? Like, take a book as an example, take it as a focus, and then literally take out from it, sip it through, and pour out the type of greatest ideas that we thought have been absolutely smashing about that book, which is not an easy thing to do, ultimately, isn't it? Because it feels like you're note-taking throughout the way and then trying to present something back.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, but it's fun.
That's what we like, a bit of challenge, isn't it?
Because it's fun. Books are always fun.
Books are always fun. And I love how you have been sharing today with the audience the various types of book forms works, right? And how there's other formats like the note-taking tool, and the expanding version also works, which is fascinating, right? Plus the coffee shop that you've got in Japan and Taiwan, they literally talk to us about the fact that people love to get themselves immersed into this new, new to them and new to others, but it's a world, another world that is luring us into books and making it possible.
I think it's good that you're actually reading Coraline in 3 languages, because I find that when you read something like in different languages, right, you have to read slower. And then, like, I'm reading this comic book at the moment, right? It's in Malay, which I'm not familiar with, but because it's not your language, you read slower. And I think it's good that you're actually reading it in Romanian and also in German as well, on top of English.
In German and in English.
Yeah, because I think the focus is more intense, isn't it? Because you're comparing contrast.
Because what I love about it as well is the fact that if one sentence, for instance, in English is being said, and it's the source language, isn't it? That's what the language of Neil Gaiman is being released into the market. But other than that, even though this is the original language, it's good to see how is it being interpreted, for instance, in German, or how is it being interpreted in Romanian, and how are they literally creating that reaction of the other party when the dialogue is happening. Because to me, that is the pure, the pure sense of mastery. Literally, it's when people master the language in such a way that it makes you feel something in return. So I'm a big fan of such of an approach.
The joy of being multilingual.
Yeah, multilingual reading, that is. But I'll tell you where this inspiration came from. If you ladies have seen this movie, The Terminal, with Tom Hanks, right? It's been, in the market for at least 15 years, probably. So it's a bit, oldish, but it is a fascinating movie with Catherine Zeta-Jones as well in it. It shows how he was learning English language, because he came from another country in Eastern Europe, nearby Georgia somewhere, and he was stuck in the airport, right? So he literally took a few examples of those various advertising sheets in the airport, and he tried to put the language, his original language, next to English language, and see how it's, it reads in English what he's reading in his own language. So it's fascinating as a technique.
Very true. Yeah. So looking forward to the next episode, because there's going to be a lot of examples that we have to dive into. Yeah. Because that's when I think that I suspect we're gonna go back to the discussion of the book format. How that affects our reflection. Oh my
Absolutely. And if anything, there could be a few challenges that we could pose along the way. I know that we will post something on LinkedIn as also as a version of what we're trying to do here on YouTube. And that is in particular this question around, okay, so if we're talking about reflection through reading, then maybe we can put out there something like, 5 or 7 books, and then literally take out a single sentence that would represent that book. Wouldn't it be hard? Isn't it? But
That'd
like,
be great. That'd be great, isn't it?
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah, they're really great. I've got lots of examples here, but I just can't show you everything, you know.
no, exactly right. But that's the beauty and the art of it, trying to sum up the wonderful book in just one sentence. That's like literally something that is not going to be easy to do, to make it justice, right? But we're going to try.
Yeah.
Excellent. And with that in mind, very grateful for the time that we've had to discuss today. I know that we're looking forward to each of these connections. So we'll keep our energy uplifted in order to connect next time and come with some fascinating insights that we will read from various books that we like.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.
Thank you, ladies. All the best to you, and looking forward to connect with our audience later on. Bye.
Bye.